I don't mind so much. Wednesday, well, I shouldn't say that. It'd be nice to have everybody in like one section or
It
one.
would be.
But I'm all for the freedom.
Yes. Yes.
As you can tell, we're not doing normal tonight, we're not in our sightseeing.
Hey, I love that. That's great. So, mix it up. Next time, switch to somebody else. See what happens. This might have been the wrong move.
Yes.
Do you see her? Do you see her looking at me, Josh? Oh, and you do it very well.
She's on to him. That's the big part. I did. I am. Thank you.
All righty, good evening. Slow, but there, we got there. 43 in the songbook. As the deer. We'll just do verses 1 and 3. As the deer pants for the water, so my soul longs after you. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. I want you more than gold or silver, only you can satisfy. You alone are the real joy giver and the apple of my eye. You alone are my strength, my shield. To you alone may my spirit yield. You alone are my heart's desire, and I long to worship you. Let's pray. Our Father in heaven, as we come before you this evening, Father, what a privilege and what an honor it is, the creator of the entire universe. Father, everything spoken into being by your word. Father, it's said that your word has so much power that when you speak, it can't help but manifest in the physical realm. And Father, what power you have. The power to heal, to change the trajectory of our lives, of our families, of our children. Father, to change the hearts of the young and of the old. And Father, to save us from our own folly, to save us from our own sin. Father, help us to find the good in all of your creation. Help us to find the good and help us to see you in all the things that we see around us, including our neighbors. Father, I pray a special prayer for Macy and her surgery tomorrow, that you will be with her, that you will give her courage, that you will be with the doctors, guide their hands, and allow them to perform this exponentially better than they would without you. Father, thank you. Thank you for the love in which you've given us. Thank you for your kindness. Father, build this family, unify us. And it's in your Son's name that I pray. Amen. All righty, Genesis chapter 46. Genesis 46, and now Thatcher's on the way. I'm trying to finish Genesis before he gets here. I don't know. I've been having talks with him, so we'll see what happens. But I'm trying to finish Genesis, so we're going to try and get through 46, maybe a little bit of 47, but specifically 46 tonight. But just as a quick way of review, where are we in Genesis with Joseph and Jacob's family? What just happened in chapter 45? Okay. Oh, they're about to, right? So Joseph comes clean about everything, and Pharaoh says, "Hey, bring your family down to Egypt, and I'll bless you." Essentially, and when Joseph says to his brothers, "Right, don't quarrel when you go down in the way." We see when we talked about that idea of there's this quarreling maybe because of the truth that they're going to have to tell their father about what's happened and about all of the things in which they've done and their sin and confess. But maybe there's also this do not quarrel because Benjamin just has received 5 portions, right? More than his brothers. And so regardless, don't quarrel down on the way. And whenever they tell Jacob, right, all that's happened, what's his response? Say it again.
He didn't have one.
He didn't quite have one, but what was his heart? Like what does it say happened to him? Verse 27. Or 26 and 27. Yeah, well, before that.
It says he was stunned.
Okay, stunned.
Before he did not believe him.
Right, mine said numb. He had disbelief. And in his disbelief, the writer of Genesis says his name is Jacob, right? And then it says, verse 27, "But then they told him all the words of Joseph, which he said to them. And when he saw the wagons that Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of their father Jacob revived, and Israel said." And so Israel is the spirit of Jacob revived. Which is a really cool thing, by the way. Whenever Jacob is believing in the plans and the promises and what God is doing, he's called Israel because this is what God has named him. He who wrestles with God. And he wrestled there, didn't he? Like he was wrestling with, is this true? Is this something that's actually going to take place? Is this something that, is honest? Because at this point, his sons haven't been the best sons in being honest and or being the most upright and best guys out there. You think about what happens with Tamar, and you think about what happens with that one city. I can't remember it back a few chapters. But then it says, verse 28, "And Israel said, 'It is enough. Joseph, my son, is still alive, and I will go see him before I die.'" So we see Jacob makes a decision to move forward and to go down to Egypt. Verse 1 of chapter 46, "So Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. And God spoke to Israel in visions in the night and said, 'Jacob, Jacob.' He said, 'Here I am.' Then he said, 'I am God, the God of your father. Do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. I myself will go down with you to Egypt, and I will also bring you up again, and Joseph's hands shall close your eyes.'" So, let's talk about this. What are some things that you see? What do you notice about this conversation with Israel and God?
Well, it addresses him as Israel.
Okay.
He's acknowledging that he's following his word, he's doing his wishes.
Yeah, absolutely. What else? Say it again. A promise by who to who? Yeah, it's reassurance, isn't it? Now, I think what's really cool about this was this before or after Jacob made a decision or Israel made a decision? Isn't that interesting? Wouldn't you think that God would come to him before he makes his decision to reassure him that the decision that he's going to make or what he should do or where he should go? And yet this is a conversation that's had after or while he's on his way?
Well, God says, like, that in order for him to work in our lives, we have to surrender over to him. And so, in a way, that's what he did. He surrendered over to God, and that allowed God then to work in his life, and now God's able to
Right. Yeah. I think sometimes, and we talk about this, whether that is just like a general church type topic that we talk about, but this idea of understanding what the will of God is, right? How do we understand the will of God for ourselves and our lives? We've talked about Romans chapter 12 and verse 2, that the transforming of our minds and not conforming to the world, right? By this you test what the will of God is for you in your life, what is good, what is... And so there is a testing to see what the will of God is. We have to make decisions, and we seek God, and we seek to please and glorify God in those decisions. But we have to act. We have to move forward. We have to take a step. Right? I think some people get stunned in fear of, I don't know what to do, or I don't know where to go, or I don't know what I should be doing. And then there's no action. And when there's no action, God, I'm not going to say he can't, but most of the things that we've seen with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are men who are on the move, right? Now, he does go to Abraham and say, go. But these are men that are movers, shakers. They move. They're going from place to place and doing God's will in the midst of that. So, God reassures him, but then, like Morgan said, he reiterates the promise, right? Notice in verse 4, or verse 3 at the end, do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. Now, why would he be afraid to go to Egypt?
It's a foreign country.
Okay, for one, it's a foreign country.
There's also a famine going on in the land too. How can you prosper in a time when there's next to no resources available?
Yeah,
See that there's no resources available.
you're telling me that the time is now to move my entire family of however many people are in it, right? All my livestock, all of my possessions, everything I have, and to move down there. That's a scary notion, especially in a time of unrest, a time of societal unknowns. Great point.
I have a note that Egyptians hated shepherds. Is that?
That's going to be here in a second. But also remember, whenever Joseph was eating and his brothers were eating, what did it say about the Hebrews?
Joseph ate by himself, his brothers ate by themselves. By themselves.
Yeah, because to eat with a Hebrew would be an abomination. So there's some animosity, which might go back to Abraham getting one over on Pharaoh, right? And then Pharaoh giving him all of this money and wealth and stuff to just get out of Egypt. Like, could it go all the way back to that? It's interesting. But I also think, not just the Abraham thing, but even his father Isaac, I think it's Genesis 26 and verse 2 or somewhere around there, that God forbids Isaac to go to Egypt. So this is Jacob, Isaac's son. So he's going to have some frame of reference that Egypt is not a place that we need to go. This God forbade my dad going to Egypt. Things didn't go well. Sarah almost got taken, right, by Egypt before this. We probably should not be going to Egypt. And now we see that shepherds are hated and Hebrews eating with them is an abomination to God. In a famine, this is not the place necessarily that I would want to go to. That a place to where these two cultures may be completely at odds with one another, and Egypt is way bigger, way more powerful, and able to crush Jacob and his people. But God comes and he says, right, do not be afraid to go down to Egypt, for there I will make you into a great nation. And so there's this thought, and I love this thought, that it's usually in the places that we least expect is where we find most blessings from God. Do you think Jacob would have ever thought that he was going to go to Egypt and find blessing? Especially after all the things that his sons just went through, especially after all of the things that his father was told not to do and what Abraham went through. And they tell these oral histories down from son to son to son, these things are told. Do you ever think that Jacob is thinking Egypt is where it's at? That's where God's going to bless me. That's where I'm going to have the most blessing. More than likely not.
Why in 2, or is it any significance that he's addressed in both terms?
I think because in both terms he is, and he, how do I say this? He is Jacob, but he is also Israel.
Yes.
And so there's this idea in my mind, and I could be completely wrong about this, but Jacob makes up Israel as much as Israel makes up Jacob. And it is used interchangeably within the text at times. I think what we saw in 25 through 28 was a significant part of him showing where he is in his heart and his spirituality towards God. But that doesn't necessarily always indicate something, if that makes sense,
Yeah,
too.
just thought it in just one paragraph.
Sure.
That it was interchanged that much in just 15 words.
Well, and what's interesting, too, and this is where reading the Bible becomes difficult sometimes, is who's telling us. Verse 1, so Israel took his journey with all that he had and came to Beersheba and offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. That's the narrator, or Moses, in our understanding, writing to us, telling us what's going on, and then telling us what God says, but then also referring to him as Israel in his writing. It's not hairy, but it can be, right? In a way. Yeah, in a way it can be, for sure. Madeline and I have had this conversation, I think just this past week, about names, and the fact Saul and Paul gets changed, Peter gets changed, and these names that get changed, it's interesting. If you're one of the apostles or disciples and you don't get a name change, and you're kind of sitting there going, did I do something wrong? It's just kind of a funny conversation. Yeah.
Speaking of names, we said Hebrews, and that made me think, are Esau's people Hebrews? Are Ishmael's people Hebrews? Because it starts with Abraham, right?
Yes. So they are, but then they split out to being not. Right, because his people end up being the Edomites, I believe. Someone can check me on that? Yeah. And so, but also he's intermarrying and mingling with non-Hebraic people too, right? He married those two ladies that his mom detested, which was an affront to her, by the way. Did it on purpose. And so his line is... Yep. The waging of war against brothers is a theme that continues on in the text, moving into the New Testament. But I think it's 46, and I can't remember where. Sometimes when you have so much in your head, you feel like you have nothing in your head, if that makes sense. I'll have to find what it is I'm thinking about. I'll find it here in a second. The genealogy is interesting because the genealogy is also giving us names that have probably not even been born yet. And that's what I'm talking about, like the narrator is telling us things that they wouldn't have known yet, but they know now because they're living this many years apart from when these things happened, right? Okay.
I think it's interesting that both Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, like there was a famine with each generation.
Mm-hmm.
I just hadn't really noticed that before. And Abraham did go to Egypt, but then Isaac didn't. I think you already kind of said that, but I don't know, just some observation that.
It's interesting, right? Because we live in a culture and a time where famine is so not thought of, at least within America. I mean, a famine to us is eggs costing $11 or $12. Like that's what we would consider struggling, and yet, and that's overgeneralizing. I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I'm just saying, famines were more. They happened in a way that actually devastated people back then, and they still do today in third world countries, in places like that. But we don't see those as much anymore in America. And so I'm not saying that it didn't happen for a reason with all three men, but there's also a sense that in those times it would have been more of a common thing, because if you think you have your own family and group, well, if you have a famine, then the crops that you needed to feed your animals, you don't have, and other people don't have. And so it's kind of almost like, I think the closest thing I can relate it to is here about 3 or 4 years ago, where we had that major hay shortage because it was just a major drought everywhere. I mean, I think that would happen easier than it would today for us. I probably talked way too much about famine. I'm sorry. Yeah, David?
Well, I was thinking, where God comes to him, he promises him. We've talked about how they view God.
Mm-hmm.
And how and I'm wondering, part of it is, if they view God as a local God.
Yep.
And not understanding that he was the God of the universe. And so God is saying here, don't worry about it. I'm also the God of Egypt.
Sure.
So I think, there could have been, the limitation that they put on God.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that today.
Yeah.
A lot of times, you go back and study this, but as Americans, we have a view that God is almost an American.
Sure.
He's an American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you go someplace out, long ways from America, you go, God's still there.
Sure. No, absolutely. Exodus, probably chapters 1 through 12 is maybe one of my top, I don't know how to rank this, but top 5 favorite passages or just studies in all of the Bible, essentially, because it holds so much weight for everywhere else. His people coming out of Egypt, God giving his name Yahweh and what it means to his people, calling them his firstborn, going to bat and war with the major superpower of that time spiritually in a way that we haven't seen yet. Like it's literally like a war of the gods in Exodus 1 through 12. It's a cultural framework and mindset that we probably don't quite understand living in America because of the way that we see things naturalistically. But Exodus 1 through 12 is maybe some of the most incredible things, and I want to get to that. Like that's what Genesis has been about, is getting to the Exodus. And so when we get there, you'll probably see me geeking out way too much than you've seen me in Genesis, but I love it. So Let's jump to 28 because the rest of these, we see Jacob set out from Beersheba with his little ones. They took their livestock, their goods, and all the things with them. That tells us the genealogy of people who aren't even born yet. And I believe it is 70 peoples combined, or 70 is the number in some sense. It might be 66. I can't quite remember, but 70 is kind of the idea of, and it's not, I'm totally slipping right now.
26 says 66, the total's 70, isn't it?
Yes, that totals 70. Right, which 7 is the number for perfection, and then 10 is the amplifier showing complete perfection in terms of these are God's people. Right, this is who he's chosen numerically and through Jacob and whatnot. Verse 28, he had sent Judah ahead of him to Joseph to show the way before him in Goshen, and they came into the land of Goshen. Then Joseph prepared his chariot and went up to meet Israel his father in Goshen. He presented himself to him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck for a good while. Israel said to Joseph, "Now let me die, since I have seen your face and know that you are still alive." Joseph said to his brothers and to his father's household, "I will go up to tell Pharaoh and will tell him, my brothers and my father's household, who were in the land of Canaan, have come to me. And the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of livestock, and they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. When Pharaoh calls you and says, 'What is your occupation?' you shall say, 'Your servants have been keepers of livestock from our youth, even until now, both we and our fathers, in order that you may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination to the Egyptians.'" So, what we see is Israel and Joseph reconnect, have this reconciliation, and then we see Joseph preparing his family for where they're about to live and for how they're going to go about figuring this out and doing it. So, in thinking about all of that's in chapter 46, I have some application questions that I think are good for us. They were good for me. What does Jacob's willingness to move to Egypt teach us about making major life changes? What does Jacob's willingness to move to Egypt teach us about making major life changes? Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta, pray and just go for it, make the step, even if you're not convinced 100%.
Yeah.
You just gotta go.
Absolutely. I heard someone talking about the David and Goliath story, and I'm sure I've told you guys this before. But God uses a single pebble to foil a giant. And by giant, I mean he's bigger than Shaquille O'Neal, right? To foil this man. Small pebble. And what this guy said was, God can use a pebble moving through the air more so than he can use a pebble that's in the stream. It's got to be in motion. It's got to be moving towards something. It's got to be used, right? Sometimes we just want to be that pebble in the stream that's waiting for God to pick us up and do something with us. But we've got to be the ones that get up and go, and then God can use that for his glory. I love that. That's great. Notice also that Jacob is old. When he gets to Pharaoh, this is the end of Jacob's life. And so he's moving at a time in which no one wants to move and move everything so far down into Egypt, right? But yet he's doing so at an old age because of his faith in God, because of his faith and plan in the story. And so at the time of his old age, and yet he uproots his life in obedience to God. How willing are we to make hard changes if we sense God is leading us in those directions, regardless of the circumstance?
Well, I mean, I was really scared to move to Cleveland. And leave Southern Missouri, some place I've ever lived, and my whole family is there.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember it wasn't Jacob necessarily, but Abraham that I was reading like a few weeks before
We do.
And you talked about it recently, about how you had no desire to be a preacher,
Yeah.
but what, something motivated you to get out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to move across the country
Sure.
to get out of your comfort zone.
Sure. And listen, this is not me saying I fully believe that it is okay to plant roots too. Like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with planting roots either. But in the moment that we believe and we have this faith that God is leading us towards a certain change or a certain move, regardless of how deep the roots are we willing to make that change and to do that thing? It's scary, but Jacob moves to Egypt and his entire family is blessed for years upon years. And so I just love that idea of how willing are we to make hard changes if we sense God is leading us in those directions. But then to couple with that, how do we approach big life-changing decisions?
Well, I think that's where, we're very blessed to have the Bible to give us that reassurance, because it gives us proof that God does keep His promises.
Yeah.
That God does work when we make that move, that God is going to do there. So this is something that we have that they didn't have back then. So we
Sure.
have something in our hands now that should be able to help us to move forward with God and to make these decisions. But we have to turn to His Word for that strength and go, like you said, like He commands us to do, is to pray. And we have prayer, we have His Word to go to get us through it.
So, great answer. Notice this too. How do we approach big life-changing decisions? Jacob, or Israel, decided to go to Egypt. And while on his way to Egypt, what did he stop in Beersheba to do? Sacrifice and worship God. I think sometimes we get, like I talked about that stuck spot of, I don't know what to do or I don't know where to go. And sometimes you just got to go, and in going, worship and sacrifice and be with God. And it'll show you where you're supposed to go, where you're supposed to be. It'll test what the will of God is for you in your life. Now, he's about to meet with Pharaoh. And the way that he describes his life, I just want to show you this too, because it's very interesting to me. Pharaoh says, how many are the days of your life? Jacob says to Pharaoh, the days and years of my sojourning are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days and years of my life, and they have not attained to the days of the years of the life of my fathers and the days of their sojourning. That's quite an answer, isn't it? He's lived 130 years, and he says, few and evil have been the years of my life. But yet, where is he now? At 130 years old, where is he? In the scariest place he could be in Egypt, but the land of blessing for him. Which sometimes in our minds doesn't make sense.
Well, and to think to have your eyes closed by a son that you thought you lost years ago, and you're reunited with, and he puts you to rest.
Yeah. It's a cool story, isn't it?
It really is.
Yeah, it's really, really awesome. Okay, so coupling with that then, Jacob moves towards Egypt, or Israel moves towards Egypt, even when it was associated with danger. Abraham almost loses Sarah in Genesis 12. Isaac was forbidden to go to Egypt in Genesis 26. And in some way, there's an abomination to eat with a Hebrew or to be a shepherd, of which he is both, by the way. So, in thinking about that, how do we respond when obedience leads us to uncomfortable places?
I think that's what Sunday morning's been about in 1 Peter.
Yeah.
There's blessing, but there's also suffering.
Absolutely. Yeah, how do we respond when obedience leads us to uncomfortable places? What should the response be? Yeah. Yeah. What did Jacob say in verse 2 of chapter 46? Here I am. As difficult as it might be at 130 years old to move down to Egypt with your entire family, when he goes to God and God comes to him and he says, here I am, I mean, goodness sakes. I pray that at my oldest, when God comes to me with these life-changing decisions, I'm able to make that same thing, right? Here I am. Do with me what you will. Like, I'm ready. But God also tells Jacob, do not be afraid, right? Jesus tells his disciples, and lo, I am with you, even until the end of the age. Like, there's peace and there's comfort in knowing that we're with God in the midst of where he's leading us. Or there should be peace and comfort in that. Two more. What does the reconciliation of Jacob's family, what does the reconciliation of Jacob's family teach us about healing old wounds? Think about verses 28 through 34. There's years of deception, there's years of loss, there's years of trauma within the family. But what does this reconciliation of Jacob's family teach us about healing old wounds?
God can bring all that time back.
He can heal it, for sure. But what is incumbent upon us? There's a willingness.
And if healing comes with spite,
Mm.
envy, or any of that stuff, then it's not really healing.
Sure.
You know, envy is a ditch 8 feet deep that you can never get out of. It's a never-ending ditch.
Sure. And then, to go along with this, is there a relationship in your life that needs courageous steps towards reconciliation? Forgiveness. Maybe a little bit of testing to figure out where the relationship is at or what's going on in it, right? Think about change that needs to happen, like the change that needed to happen for Judah in order for Joseph to see, okay, he's not the same guy anymore. He's not going to sell out his brothers and leave. Like, what relationships in your life need courageous steps toward reconciliation? And now what we have to understand is that while this ends in forgiveness and blessing, that's not always the picture, because it's a two-sided street. And sometimes you may go towards reconciliation and asking for forgiveness or giving forgiveness or whatever that might be, and that other person may not want to have anything to do with you. But you're the one who's reached out. You're the one who's done the hard thing, the difficult thing, and trying to reconcile and trying to make that relationship right.
I think last Sunday you did point out too in class that sometimes that separation isn't a bad thing.
Not always. Yeah. Last one. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that it happens on God's timeline, not
That's a great point.
Moses or Israel's timeline. And then also, like, it took really terrible things in order to bring it about.
Yeah.
What'd she say? I couldn't hear.
It took really terrible things for this forgiveness to reach its head, essentially, or to come about. And she said it was on God's timeline and not theirs. Both great points. Would the forgiveness have... maybe that's not a good question. Would the forgiveness have been as sweet if it wasn't for all of those things? I think yes and yes, right? Or yes and no, possibly. But I think forgiveness is always wonderful. It's always a great thing. But it's the tragedies in between that, I don't know, that, they're weeping on each other's necks after 22 or more years.
It's kind of like when you've done a hard job and
Sure.
put into it. It's kind of like, man, I was able to overcome, so it makes it a better sweet, like you were saying.
Sure.
Like, really, it really makes the heart feel better.
Well, and this is not a grace or a salvation statement by any means, but why does it lift our hearts to say no tears in heaven?
Why does it matter?
Why does it lift our hearts to think about no tears in heaven? Yeah. Because we cry here, because things are difficult here, because things are, yes, would that, without any of this, be sweet and amazing? Absolutely. But there's also this reality that because of the difficulty of life here, that it does make that just so much sweeter. And that's what I'm saying in this situation too, is that forgiveness would have been great, but because of all of the difficult things and growth and changes and things that they had to go through, it made that forgiveness and weeping on his brother's necks and on his father's neck so much more sweet. Now, do I wish they had to go through all that for that to happen? Absolutely not. But it's perspective.
It's kind of like our life before God and before forgiveness. Like
Yeah.
famine, right? Like those who aren't living in that forgiveness are in a famine.
Sure.
So I don't even realize how severe it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question, and then we'll close. We see in 28 through 34 that Joseph has shown both preparation and faith in these times. You think about there's the faith in God that he's going to give favorable answers to Pharaoh, but then there's also the preparation of Egypt in order for the coming wealth and famine. And so we see both faith and preparation held in a specific kind of a balance between one another. And I think sometimes, right, we get into this difficulty of, well, how much faith should we have or how much preparation, right? And kind of this idea of which should it be? So the question is, what would preparation and faith look like in our lives? And what is the balance for the two?
There's an old saying that some people are just lucky, but then you look at them and their preparation is so great that there's no luck involved, they've already prepared.
Okay. What should we be prepared for? Okay, one is the second coming, right?
I think in a practical way, the Proverbs 31 woman, it shows she was,
Oh, yeah.
Preparing
Mm-hmm.
her family just for the winter that was to come. And,
Right. Yeah,
it practically matters.
absolutely. And you prepare what you can prepare, and you kind of release the rest to God. Great. What's the word? Oh my goodness. Example. It's the end of class. So here's the question, right? Joseph has shown both preparation and faith in these times. How can we do our part and release the rest to God? How can we do our part and release the rest to God?
Well, I think that's where, kind of like maybe what I was talking to you about earlier, about we do the things that we ought to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or the rest, we just have to leave it in God's hands.
Yeah.
Like, you wake up, we do the things that the Bible suggests, like taking care of those, the things that we're supposed to do.
Sure.
Being obedient, let God handle the rest.
Well, the skill is being able to help someone else,
Yeah, absolutely.
or less, and let somebody help
Mhm.
us.
That's a huge part of it too. Yeah.
How much growth do we have to have before we could do that?
Even today, how hard it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so difficult for us to let go.
Well, and I used release purposefully, right? Because that's sometimes what it feels like. It feels like I've done all this preparation now. God, I've got the reins super tight, right? Here's the rest, right? Like, we do hold on tight to things. We do hold on tight to our preparation and where we think we've got it. But then sometimes we prepare and it just swept away. And then we have to have the faith that says, yeah.
I was saying, like, sometimes, maybe you gotta go 80, God comes 20. Sometimes you can only go 20, and God,
Sure.
then God comes 80, type, kind of. Sometimes you have to prepare more and let God come a little, and vice versa.
Yeah. And the cool thing is spiritually, God has come 100%. And the reason why I didn't do 110, because he's done just as much and even more so, everything possible to allow you to have the faith that you need to do that, to live in these ways. Great class, great participation. I always appreciate your guys' thoughts, your guys' answers. It makes my job so much more enjoyable, I promise you. Let's pray. Sorry we went a little bit over, and we'll be done with class. Our gracious and powerful Father in heaven, you are the Father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the Father of Joshua and the judges, of David and the prophets. Father, you are our Father, and you have done so much for us, more than we could ever imagine. Father, your Son upholds this very universe, the very being of the world and of this creation, with the power and the might of his word. We know that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with you, and the Word was you. Father, but that Word dwelt among us. He tabernacled with us. And Father, I pray that we might show our appreciation, knowing that it's not us who saves ourselves, but Father, it's you who through your grace and through your mercy has given us the ability to glorify you. Father, help us to bear your image, and help us never to put something before you within our lives, before our eyes, whatever that might be. Father, help us to be those of preparation and faith. Help us to be those that seek your way and seek your guidance and to lead us to wherever we need to go. And Father, give us the strength and the courage not to be afraid whenever we make those decisions that you are leading us to. Father, bless us in these things. It's in your Son's name that I pray. Amen.
So tonight on our circle of concern, still need prayers for Macy Campbell as she undergoes the surgery tomorrow. Jerry McGee, he's been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and will start treatment soon, so we need to still pray for him. Prayers for Brianna Crum. She will be induced with her baby boy on December 18th. Prayers for Chrissy's mom. She fell and she's at the hospital getting stitches. Please keep praying for Linda Garms as she goes through her treatments. This Saturday, December 13th, we have the ladies' Christmas party at Susan Haney's beginning at 11. Please bring a brunch item to share. In place of the gift exchange, they'll be doing donations going to a family that's in need. The December 18th Kingfisher Winter Nights, we still need volunteers to sign up at the train station, the entry points and exit points. The sign-up's on the bulletin out in the foyer. And one more announcement, the ladies' weekday class and men's Bible class are taking a break for the rest of December and will resume in January. Is there any other announcements? Then we are dismissed.
First Sunday I ever came to this one.
She should drive it. Cause I drive that car and I feel like I'm like way too tall.